old lighthouse keeper's cottage was more of a derelict skeleton than a home when we bought it. Perched precariously on the cliff edge, it had stood empty for 20 years, battered by sea spray and whispers of the previous occupant, Faceless. The locals said he'd gone mad in the end, that the lighthouse's incessant beam had driven him to see things that weren't there. We, being young and foolishly optimistic, saw a fixer-upper with a breathtaking view. The first sign that Faceless's madness might have left a residue was subtle. I was sanding the living room floorboards, the air thick with sawdust and the salty tang of the sea. A faint, rhythmic tapping started like a distant hammer. I paused, listening. It stopped. I resumed sanding, and it began again, a little louder this time, more insistent. It wasn't coming from outside, it was inside the walls. I tapped on the plaster where the sound seemed strongest. Nothing. Then, as if a switch had been flipped, the tapping vanished completely. It didn't return for weeks. Then came the whispers. They started late at night, barely audible above the crashing waves. At first, I dismissed them as the wind playing tricks, the old house settling. But they grew, coalescing into distinct, sibilant sounds that seemed to coil in the corners of rooms. My wife, Clara, heard them too. We'd lie awake, straining our ears, the sound like dry leaves skittering across a tombstone. One night, the whispers formed a single, chilling word. Watch. The lighthouse itself became a focus of unease. Even though it was decommissioned, its colossal lens remained, a dead eye staring out to sea. One evening, as twilight bled into darkness, I saw it. A faint, flickering light within the lighthouse tower. Not the steady beam of a working light, but an erratic pulse, like a dying ember. I called Clara. We stood on the deck, watching, our breath catching in our throats. The light pulsed, then intensified, casting a pale, sickly green glow that swept across the waves for a moment before abruptly vanishing. We both felt a cold dread seep into us, a visceral certainty that whatever Faceless had seen, it was still here. The true horror arrived on a night of a brewing storm. The wind howled, rattling the ancient windows like skeletal fingers. The tapping returned, not just in the walls, but everywhere. A frantic, desperate pounding that seemed to emanate from the very foundations of the cottage. And the whispers were no longer hushed. They were a chorus, a cacophony of tormented voices, all screaming the same word over and over. Trapped, trapped, trapped. Then, silhouetted against the lightning-lit sky, it appeared at the lighthouse door. A figure, gaunt and elongated, draped in what looked like tattered, oil-stained rags. Its limbs were too long, its movements jerky and unnatural. As it turned its head towards our cottage, we saw it had no face, only a gaping, black void where eyes and mouth should have been. And from that void, a sound emerged, not of speech, but of a dry, rustling rasp that filled the storm-fueled night. It was the sound of Faceless, finally consumed by the madness he had so desperately tried to escape. His torment, now a palpable entity, a shadow forever bound to the light he could no longer control. We fled that night, leaving everything behind, the guttural rasp of the faceless entity echoing in our ears. chilling reminder that some places hold onto their despair, waiting for new souls to witness their eternal torment. This is Aqeela from the Aqeela Files. Now, can you still hear the whispers?